Hello and welcome back to Authentic Parenting. I am Anna Seewald, your host, and this is our final episode of 2025. And today I am doing something I always love, looking back and reflecting. I'll be revealing the top 10 most downloaded episodes of 2025, sharing why these conversations resonated so deeply, and highlighting a couple of episodes and guests that were personal favorites for me. Before we begin, I just want to pause and say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing episodes. Thank you for your messages, your reflections, and your trust. This year marks the 10th year of the podcast, which feels incredibly meaningful. And I also want to be honest, it was the hardest year for me personally. Showing up, staying grounded, and continuing these conversations alongside you took intention, care, and support. So let's take a breath together and reflect on what mattered most this year. Before I share the top 10 most downloaded episodes of 2025, I would like to emphasize that I do not choose this list. They are indeed the most downloaded episodes of the year. In the 10th place is an episode that I recorded with Dr. Froyen. It's called 7 Ways to Improve Well-Being, Reduce Stress, and Stay Grounded in Difficult Times. Now, if you've ever listened to any podcast episode that I have done with my friend Froyen, you know that it's going to be a great one. This episode became a favorite because it offered simple, practical ways to stay steady when life feels overwhelming. And it reminded me and many of you that even small practices can help us feel more anchored during difficult seasons. Number 9, how to connect deeply with yourself and others with another one of my friends, Kristy Lauricella. Kristy is a frequent guest on this podcast. I think if you are a regular listener, you know her. She is also my dear friend in real life, and every live event I have conducted or hosted, she's been part of. So if you attended one of my live podcast events or the conference, you've probably remember Kristy. This conversation was a deep dive into connection, what it truly is and how we cultivate it. Kristy reminds us that connection starts within and that learning to be with ourselves changes how we show up in relationships. We talked about different kinds of connection, and it's just a fantastic deep dive into the notion of connection. And I hope if you haven't listened to this during the year, you'll go back and listen to this episode and to all of the episodes that made the top 10 list. Number 8 is how to recover from burnout by regulating your emotions and nervous system with Michelle Grosser. Michelle Grosser is a fellow podcaster, and she talks about nervous system regulation, stress management on her podcast. In fact, I was a guest on her show as well. And this topic is really important. Burnout, stress management, regulating your emotions and nervous system. Burnout came up again and again this year, and for good reason. Michelle explains why recovery isn't about doing more, but about creating safety in the nervous system. She talks about her personal story of chronic illness and burnout. And it's just a really good practical episode. In the 7th place is an episode called Stop People Pleasing, How to Value Yourself and Your Needs with Amy Wilson. This episode was released earlier in the year, and Amy Wilson is also another fellow podcaster. She is the co-host of What Fresh Hell podcast. So many parents resonated with this episode, and some of my guests actually contacted me and said that this was one of their favorite episodes. People-pleasing is exhausting and deeply ingrained. Amy helps unpack how we lose ourselves in the process of helping others and how valuing our own needs is not selfish, but necessary. In this conversation, we also talked about the difference between being a helper and a people pleaser. We also talked about when to intervene when children need help. Overall, it's a fantastic episode. This conversation stayed with me long after we recorded it. In the 6th position is Why Kids Are Struggling and How to Help Them Thrive with Ned Johnson. Ned Johnson is a returning guest. He's appeared on the podcast, I think 3 or 4 times. This episode felt incredibly timely. Ned helped us understand how pressure, anxiety, and stress impact our kids and what actually helps them feel supported. What I appreciated most was how calming and compassionate this conversation felt. Presence matters more than perfection, and I cannot highly recommend listening to this episode or the other episode that I have done with Ned and checking out all the books that he has written, specifically The Self-Driven Child. It's a classic at this point. Number 5. We're halfway there. The Family Dynamic, The Mystery of Sibling Success with Susan Dominus. This conversation challenged many assumptions about parenting. Susan explores how siblings, family culture, parental expectations, and shared values shape children's outcomes, often more than individual parenting decisions. I found this episode really eye-opening and delightful. Number 4, Reclaiming Your Inner Child, Heal the Past and Live Fully with Nina Mongendre. Inner child work can feel abstract, but Nina made it accessible and grounded. Nina is also one of my dear friends in real life, and she's been on the podcast several times before, and her episodes are always top runners. This episode explored how healing old wounds impacts how we parent, relate, and show up for ourselves. What stayed with me was the gentleness of this conversation. Healing as remembering, not fixing. Nina is a family constellations facilitator, and she talks about ancestral healing. And we took a deep dive into this notion of inner child healing. So if you're curious, definitely check out this episode, Reclaiming Your Inner Child. Okay, now here are the top 3 episodes. Number 3 is Raising Emotionally Aware Boys Who Turn into Strong Men with Tosha Schore. Tosha Schore has been on the podcast again before a few times. And this episode resonated deeply with many parents raising boys. So if you're raising a boy, I do highly encourage checking out this fantastic episode. It's filled with so much wisdom, so many powerful insights, and real practical tools. Tosha shared practical tools for creating emotional safety and challenging stereotypes. I loved the hope in this conversation, the reminder that emotional awareness is a strength. Okay, we're approaching the finish line. In the 2nd place is How to Raise Capable and Resilient Children with Sheryl Ziegler. Sheryl Ziegler has been on the podcast before, and in the previous time we talked about mommy burnout. This time we focused on the middle childhood years and why they matter so much, because she has written another book called The Crucial Years. Sheryl helped us see how everyday moments build competence and confidence over time. It reinforced for me that trust and connection lay the foundation for everything that follows. This is a fantastic episode if you have younger children and you fear the teenage years. And I also highly recommend her book, The Crucial Years. Okay, I hope you're as excited as I am for the episode that takes the first place. And it is Mastering the Art of Validation, How to Make People Feel Seen and Understood with Caroline Fleck, PhD. This was the most downloaded episode of the year by far, and it makes sense. Validation is one of the most powerful and misunderstood skills in relationships and parenting. Caroline explains what validation truly is and what it isn't, and you'll learn so much from this episode. How to validate, what to validate, and so much, and so on and so forth. If you missed this episode this year, definitely put this on your listening list. You know, some episodes really land in ways I never expect. Here's one listener story that stood out to me this year. This episode wasn't in the top 10, but the impact it had says everything about why these conversations matter. I heard from a listener named Lilith. She is from Massachusetts, and she happens to be Armenian, who wrote to me right after the release of the Biology of Trauma episode with Dr. Amy Apigian, who also happens to be Armenian, half Armenian. I hope Lilith wouldn't mind, but I will read part of her note. She wrote, "Congratulations on yet another outstanding podcast. I listened to your episode with Dr. Amy Apigian and found it deeply insightful. Thank you for the shout out as well. You made my day. Your discussions always trigger aha moments. Today, it was around how health is intertwined with emotions, trauma, and stress biology. The parts on energy, nutrient deficiencies, and how trauma really does alter your body's chemistry stood out. It made me reflect on my own experiences. How could it not?" And then she gives me an example from her personal life, which I will exclude from this note. Then I'll continue by reading the last part of her note. "It's undeniable how trauma not only affects and changes you, but those you carry. When Dr. Amy discussed energy and vitamins, I wondered if past or ongoing trauma blocks vitamin absorption in those people's bodies, even when they take the exact supplements they are deficient in." Wow, what an interesting question, right? I will definitely check out her book. Your work along with Dr. Amy's is vital. I hope more people come to understand how essential emotional well-being is to overall health. Thank you for highlighting these important connections. You are amazing. Well, Lilith, thank you so much, first of all, for your friendship and for this wonderful note. I truly appreciate getting feedback like this from listeners because it validates my work. So, dear listener, if there are any episodes from this year that stood out for you, influenced you, made an impact on you, please get in touch and share. Share them with me, share them in our Facebook group. You know where to find me. Before we close, I want to share 2 episodes that were personal favorites for me this year. They didn't make the top 10 list, but they are wonderful conversations, and I really encourage you to check them out. The first one is Unlocking the Good Life, the Power of Psychological Richness with Lorraine Besser, PhD. This conversation expanded how I think about happiness and meaning and offered a richer view of what a good life can look like. I'll play a short clip from this episode for you, and I really hope you'll go back and listen or re-listen to this fantastic conversation. So psychological richness, which is a term I truly admire. It's such a all-encompassing, rich term. So you're not denying value of meaning and pleasure, but you are adding the psychological richness as the third leg of the stool. So what is psychological richness?
Yeah, thank you. So psychological richness describes the impact that a particular set of experiences have upon our mind. So experiences that tend to be complex, challenging, or even novel have stimulate our minds to engage in a very robust way. And the state of psychological richness that we're after is this state where you are experiencing this deep form of cognitive engagement, and that's marked and really characterized by the experience of new thoughts and new emotions. And so when we're having a psychologically rich experience, right, we don't really know what we're going to be thinking or how we're going to be feeling, right? But we're going along with the kind of trajectories of our mind, and we're letting ourselves feel and think. And what tends to happen, what we know about these kinds of experiences, is that after we have them, they shift our perspective, right? Just a little bit, right? But over time, when we keep engaging in these kind of ways, right, we really find the benefits of having these kinds of experiences and ways in which they contribute to our good lives.
So psychological richness has three components, I guess: novelty, challenge, and complexity. We will talk about that. But why do you think we are so preoccupied, obsessed, and chase happiness all the time? What does that come from in humans? It's even written in the Constitution of the United States, right? In pursuit of happiness. It's something that we need to pursue. That's why I love the title of your book, right? The Art of the Interesting, what we miss in our pursuit of the good life and how to cultivate it. And I love that second part, how to cultivate it, because it is cultivatable. It's upon us. We can design it. It's not something that is out there that we need to pursue and get it, right?
Yeah, it's really something that we can create within our minds. And if we develop a certain kind of mindset or way of looking at things, right, then we'll be able to have interesting experiences that develop this psychological richness. And I think that's among the many advantages or the highlights of this research. I think that's really most significant. These other forms of the good life that we've just talked about, right, they're very limited, and whether or not we experience them really is out of our hands, right? We're not completely in control of whether or not we make our achievements or get the rewards from others that we're seeking. And we're certainly not in control over whether or not we can live any kind of sustaining, pleasurable state. But we are able to engage with our surroundings, with everyone around us in a way that makes our lives more psychologically rich.
So, but pleasure basically is sensory based predominantly, I guess. Meaning is more rational, cognition based. And so psychological rich experience also involves sensory, cognitive, and emotions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the extent to which, psychological richness, as we can say, it's really happening within our minds, and it's certainly the product of many senses and our different ways in which we are connected to the world. But what's happening in the psychological richness, right, is that we're activating an area of our mind that often tends to get neglected. So we tend to think, when we think about our minds, we think about this rational planning, pursuing, goal-seeking side. Super important to many areas, but there's more to our minds, right? Our minds have a capability for what I describe as unstructured cognitive engagement, where we simply engage in thoughts and allow ourselves to feel things without aiming or trying to get anywhere. And I think so it's a form of cognitive engagement. So it's really based within the mind, but it's all about activating this area of the mind that tends to get neglected. It just tends to like lose the battle between the planning side, and I think we're all really enhance our lives by activating it.
My second favorite conversation from 2025 is why chasing a better you is making you miserable with Seth Gillihan, PhD. This episode was a powerful reminder that growth doesn't come from constant self-improvement, but from self-acceptance. I found it grounding and deeply reassuring. And here is a short clip to give you a tiny taste of what's inside this wonderful episode. And here is us, right? Here we are trying to always change and achieve and become. And I've discussed those kinds of things on the podcast. There was one guest particularly, she posed a question and I thought, wow, what a genius question. But today I'm thinking, she said, from time to time, ask yourself, who am I becoming? And I'm like, at that time, I thought that was a good question. But now I'm like, I don't know. Should we always strive to become someone else, or we are already perfect the way we are?
Yeah, it's funny. My newsletter post was about exactly that topic today. It was take a break from self-help. Like, maybe you're okay. Like, maybe you can, what do I say? Something about like, allow the current version of you to be known and loved.
Oh, see, you say it poetically. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I feel that for myself because I often feel like there's so much I want to change and improve and refine. And then, I realize at some point, like, I'm probably always going to be like this. And we can maybe work to change some things. But that quote about accepting, what's the Rogers quote?
Yeah.
We've talked about it before.
Yes, we did talk about this. I feel like every time I talk to you, this theme of acceptance shows up a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? And this is how we started our live event. And I think the Carl Rogers quote is, when I accept myself just the way I am, then I can change.
Yes.
Something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been thinking about the same thing. Obviously, I've been doing this podcast for 10 years. Maybe it's time to question things, personal development, parenting, parallel growth process. While you parent, you also grow yourself, heal your traumas, all those things. Now I'm questioning because I feel like the culture in general, we went too far. Everybody's obsessed with this growth, healing, development, optimization, and they forget to live. It's like it becomes this new task, this new pursuit. And I feel like I just want to say, stop, people. It's the same trap with a different name.
I know exactly what you mean, because I feel like ultimately, like, if my project is myself, it's not that interesting. Like, it's maybe habit forming in a way, but I guess limiting. Limiting is what I would say, that there's only so much self-improvement you can really devote yourself to. And it is, there's a kind of, it almost kind of eats its own tail. Yeah, it's nice to just kind of take a break from all the self-focus and just live.
Yeah, because why are we doing it, right? What's the purpose of this whole, working on yourself? Instead, can we accept who we are? I feel like if you constantly are obsessed with improvement, then you will never be satisfied.
Yeah, that's right.
You will never be satisfied. And so accepting the way you are and being okay and just living, and maybe that's better.
Yeah, and I think as you're suggesting too, the big question is really to what end?
Yeah.
Do I just want to get better so I can be better? I don't find a lot of meaning kind of if I follow that all the way down, like developing my ego in a way, like that's seems like ultimately kind of empty.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, about this self-improvement movement that has happened I guess maybe it started in the West and maybe it's trickling down to other countries. I'm not sure, but there was one like a meme type of thing I saw on Facebook. It said, I have healed so much that I don't like anybody. Something of that nature.
That's awesome. Right. Yeah. Once you decide to hate all the narcissists and the gaslight and everyone else. Yeah. It's great. You're finally done. You hate everyone. That's awesome.
Before I wrap up, I would really love to hear from you. Which episode stayed with you this year? Which conversations did you come back to, share with a friend, or think about long after listening. You can share your favorites in our Authentic Parenting Facebook group, or you're always welcome to reach out to me directly. I read your messages, and they truly mean more than you know. Your reflections and stories are a big part of what shapes this podcast, and I'm so grateful for this community. As we close out this year and this decade of the podcast, I want to say how deeply grateful I am for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reflecting. Thank you for growing alongside me. This year was hard for me personally, and your presence here mattered more than I can express. I hope these conversations supported you in some way, big or small. I am sending you warmth, compassion, peace, and hope as we step into a new year together. I'll see you next year. Happy New Year. That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes, and take a moment to leave a rating and review. It really helps others find the show. I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways. Join the conversation in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group, or visit the contact page at authenticparenting.com/contact to get in touch. Authentic Parenting is an ad-free show, and your donations is what makes this podcast possible. Support the show by visiting authenticparenting.com/support or becoming a patron at patreon.com. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue bringing you weekly episodes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seewald. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was edited and produced by Aminur. If you need expert support to bring your dream podcast to life, from editing to full production, Aminur can help make it happen. You'll find his link in the show notes.